Hi, friend, and welcome back to Marvelous Friends, your home for all things Marvel Cinematic Universe and beyond. I'm Rhett, and today we're talking Hercules.
Honey, you mean Hercules.
Roll that credit. First and foremost, I just want to say everything in this video is my own speculation, theory, and opinion. None of this has been confirmed by Disney or Marvel or anyone else involved in those decision-making processes, so let just be said and known up front. Now, when Marvel announced that there would be an Eternals movie coming up, several people began to theorize what that film would be like. That's what we do out here in the world as fans. We like to kind of think of what a story could look like before we get any kind of confirmation. And then, of course, those rumor mills really started to spin when Marvel Studios confirmed that a member of the team would be an openly gay male and would be prominently included within the team and not a secondary character. So, when people started thinking about who that could be in particular, many people looked to the hero from the comic books named Hercules. And there are a few reasons for that connection, and I will start there. First and foremost, this theory of connection comes from the idea that the Eternals themselves are very highly influenced by the ideas of Greek mythology. Kirby and Lee, who were big fans of Greek mythology, often looked to those stories to create stories for our heroes and often inspire the heroes themselves. And not only Greek mythology, but of course other cultural myths as well. I mean, look at Thor and the Asgardians. They are basically Norse mythology turned into comic books. And that is the same idea here with the Eternals. However, it's important to note, and I will get into this more in detail as we move forward, that Hercules is not actually related to the Eternals. Now, Hercules in the comic books is based upon the Greek mythology, and many of his storylines follow that same ideal. The Eternals themselves are just kind of loosely related on the idea of a pantheon of godlike creatures. And yes, they do live in Olympia, a city that is on top of Mount Olympus, and they do often share other connections as well. For example, the Eternals were created on the planet Titanus, which is kind of similar, if you think about it, to the word Titans, which is the group of rulers of the world that lived before the Greek gods, and the Greek gods themselves were birthed from them and overthrew them to live in a more harmonious ways with mortals. Now, even if you go beyond this, there are other tie-ins here as well. For instance, one of the original Eternals was named Kronos, which is the same name as one of the Titans who actually gave birth cannot talk, excuse me, to most of our Greek gods. And there's other instances as well of some of the Eternal and their roster of members having inspiration from Greek character mythology names. However, again, they are not related to Hercules, and Hercules and them rarely cross over. Now, this isn't always true. They do interact with each other, both as allies and against each other, just like any other of the Marvel comic book characters do. But not in any substantial way that really kind of links them as a connected party. Now, there is a slight example that kind of goes against this that many people look to as this reasoning. And that's the idea that for a while in the comic books, Hercules offered his place as a kind of refuge to crash for the Eternal named Gilgamesh, who is going to be one of our featured main roster members of the Eternals in the upcoming movie. Now, the two of them were friends and did stay together for a while and had some adventures during that time as kind of a duo. But this was short-lived and not kind of long-lasting in the relationship between the two, and it was a friendly platonic relationship at that. Which brings me to my next point as why people made this connection to Hercules. And that is in the comic books, Hercules is bisexual. Often in his iterations, he finds both romantic partners and men and women. And I think that is partially why people thought of this as a connection here, because Hercules is bisexual, which is different than gay. Let's make that very clear. But they could obviously play up the fact that he is attracted to men more in this film and kind of lead down that way and play up those connections to the Greek mythology of the Eternals a little bit more. I mean, after all, it is the MCU. They are creating their own storylines, and they can choose to kind of play up what aspects they want to make the story work the best for them. However, I do not think that is going to be the case, and I think that, honestly, we're not going to see Hercules anytime soon in the Marvel movies. And here is why. First and foremost, as I already mentioned, Hercules in the comic books is bisexual. He is not gay, and I think it would be a disservice of the character to rewrite it in this way, especially considering there are so many characters in the comic books who are various members of the LGBT community, and there's plenty of male gay superheroes that they could point to as bringing in and filling that role. So why change someone who is openly bisexual very prominently in the comic books to being gay? Especially considering, if you really think about it, that's a hot button topic right now, and the idea of proper male bisexual representation in the media has kind of been in the discussion in the few months leading up to everything that's going on right now in the world, and that's kind of taken a forefront backseat, excuse me, not forefront, backseat discussion. But that was kind of a thing I saw popping up a lot as people were discussing LGBT representation, especially bisexual. So I feel like they probably would want to avoid this issue of turning someone who is bisexual into fully gay in the movies. Beyond that, as well, there is the fact that, well, they have announced who that character is going to be. We know that the gay character in the movie is not going to be Hercules. In fact, it's going to be another member of the Eternals named Fastus, and he will also be represented as married and having a husband in the film. But beyond that, like I said, I have a lot of reasons why I don't think we're going to be seeing him in the future either, and that comes down to the Disney version of the film. The big bottom line here is that Marvel Studios is a subsidiary of the Disney platform, and Disney will have some say in what happens here. And when you look at it back in the 90s, we already have a Disney Hercules, and that is in the animated feature Hercules of the same name. Now, I don't think Disney is going to hand over the rights to that namesake to the Marvel Studios to produce something else when they potentially are looking at something of their own. Now, let's flash back to the 90s. Hercules came out in the height of the Disney Renaissance, which gave us many of our favorite, gosh, I cannot talk, I'm sorry, Disney movies to this day, including Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, and so many more, Lion King, and of course Hercules was one of those. Now, it wasn't the best of all of those, and especially in the rankings, but considering how many Disney films are out there, Hercules does tend to rank in the top. And if you look at specifically the ones that came out in that time frame of the Disney Renaissance, it often ranks very high in that list comparatively to others. And considering today we're seeing a secondary renaissance of Disney as they turn many of their animated classics into live action features, and mainly been focusing on that Disney Renaissance age with, Beauty and the Beast, Mulan, which is coming out shortly. Well, shortly in comparison to anything else right now, and Aladdin, Lion King, etc. So it's not a surprise that they are going to be looking to do Hercules as well at some point in the future as a live action film. Now, this, of course, it has been slightly rumored. I've heard things kind of spilled out here and there about this. I'm not sure if it's purely kind of fan rumor, fake things, or if this actually is coming from Disney. But one thing I heard is that there was the idea that they've already kind of started looking into casting, including bringing Danny DeVito back to play Phil and stuff like that. But again, all that stuff is speculation and rumor. I have nothing confirmed regarding that, and haven't read anything confirmed about a Hercules film being in the make. However, it's very plausible, and Disney is not going to want two character films out there with the same name. Even if he is a secondary character in the MCU, they wouldn't want that being a confusing factor for the fans. And though I give credit to fans being able to discern a Disney versus Marvel version of the character, it's still one of those things I feel like Disney isn't going to want to risk, especially when it comes down to the fact that it's a money-making deal and they're not going to want to lose out on their version being less popular than the Marvel version. And then that goes a step further. Let's be honest, Disney is getting better about their LGBT representation in their media, but still not great. And so they definitely, in the small chance that they do give the green light for the MCU and Marvel Studios to include a Hercules within their franchises, they're not going to want him to be openly bisexual. They're probably going to give him the Elsa treatment, where we all know, but we're just not saying kind of thing. But they're not going to have him be openly bisexual as to potentially ruin their family-friendly version of the pure Hercules from back in the 90s. Please take note of those air quotations. So basically, Disney is the big hurdle here, I guess you could say. And I really don't think that they're going to relinquish the character at all. And so we will either have a Disney construction of the classic cartoon into a live action film, or we'll have an MCU Hercules. And like I said, when it comes down to it, Disney is going to want the profit in their pocket rather than one of their subsidiaries of Marvel Studios, for example. So they're going to opt to benefit themselves and go forward with a live action remake of the 90s cartoon. So if you're hoping to have Hercules in the MCU anytime in the future, even outside of this Eternals run, which obviously has been confirmed that he is not going to be a part of already, don't get your hopes up, because I don't think we're going to be seeing Hercules anytime in the near foreseeable future, at least. And even then, it'll probably be way, way, way down the road, if even that. I would say the chances are almost zero that he will be making his way to any live action screen outside of a Disney remake. But that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. That's what those comments are for. Keep it polite, keep it nice, but let me know. Were you looking forward to the idea of potentially having Hercules in the MCU? Would you like to have that, or would you rather have the Hercules live action remake of the Disney classic from the 90s? Let me know, and I'd love to hear some discussion on that. And, whatever aspects of the character you'd like to talk about as well. Though, that's going to be all. Make sure you guys are subscribed and set alerts to catch all my future videos. And, I always love to hear from you guys and talk to you guys about all that. So definitely be following along the channel as we move forward. If you enjoyed this video and like the ideas I have presented, I always appreciate a like on the video, as it helps the channel grow and get exposure to other people out in the world. That being said, though, I hope you all have a marvelous rest of your day. Bye, friend.